Welcome back. If you were here last night, some part of you already knows this voice. Some part of you already knows this pace. Slow, unhurried, steady, like a hand resting flat against your back while you breathe. If this is your first night with us, that is all right too. Nothing you missed is required to be here now. The door is always exactly as open as you are ready for it to be. Last night, or perhaps for you a night that has not happened yet, time works strangely with a voice like this one. We walked toward the shadow. We opened a door that had been sitting ajar for a long time, and we let ourselves see what waited on the other side of it, without flinching, without judgment, only witnessing. Tonight, we go a layer deeper, because meeting the shadow is only the first half of the work. There is a second half, quieter, subtler, and in some ways more disorienting. Let your body settle now, the way it already knows how to. Let your weight sink into the mattress beneath you, heavier with every breath. There is nowhere else to be. There is nothing to perform here, which, as you'll hear shortly, is precisely the point of tonight's work. Before we begin, as before, I want to offer you a small anchor, a signal to your own subconscious that you are here, present, willing. If you'd like, in the comments below, simply write, "I am ready to meet the mask." You do not need to know yet what that means. The willingness is enough. It always was. Let your eyes close if they haven't already. Let your jaw loosen. Let your hands, wherever they're resting, go soft and heavy, unclenched, unclasped, simply resting the way objects rest when nothing is asking anything of them. Tonight, we're going to talk about the face you show the world, where it came from, what it costs to wear it without ever taking it off, and what waits, quietly, patiently, underneath it. And we'll close, as before, by borrowing wisdom from the Stoics and the Buddhist teachers, before descending, together, into stillness. There is nothing to get right tonight. There is only this, your breath, this voice, and the slow unfolding of a mind finally given permission to stop holding its shape. Let's begin. Carl Jung gave a name to the face we present to the world. He called it the persona, a word borrowed directly from the Latin term for the masks worn by actors in ancient theater. This is worth sitting with for a moment. Even the word itself tells us something. A persona was never meant to be mistaken for the actor's actual face. It was a tool, put on for the performance, and taken off again once the play was over. The trouble, Jung observed, is that most of us forget to take the mask off. We put it on so early, as children, learning which version of ourselves earned love, safety, belonging, and we wear it so consistently, for so many years, across so many rooms, that eventually the mask and the face underneath it begin to feel like the same thing. We stop remembering there was ever a moment we chose to put it on. I want to be clear about something before we go further, because this teaching is easily misunderstood. The persona is not a lie. It is not inherently dishonest or shameful or something to be torn off in one dramatic gesture. The persona is necessary. It is how a person functions in a family, a workplace, a society. The competent version of you at work, the patient version of you with a difficult relative, the composed version of you in public, even when something inside you is not composed at all. Without some persona, we would be raw nerve endings walking through a world that requires structure to function at all. The danger is not the mask itself. The danger is what Jung called identification with the persona, the slow, almost invisible process by which a person comes to believe they are only the mask and nothing more. When this happens, everything the mask does not include, the tiredness, the doubt, the anger, the need, the parts of you too messy or too tender for public rooms, gets pushed backward, out of awareness, into exactly the shadow we spent time with last night. This is the quiet, important connection between tonight's work and the work we did before. The more tightly a person grips their persona, the heavier their shadow tends to grow. It is almost a law of proportion. A very rigid mask, always cheerful, always composed, always the reliable one, always the strong one, creates, on the other side of it, a very heavy, very neglected shadow, simply because so much has had to be excluded to keep the mask so perfectly intact. Perhaps it is the mask of the capable one, the person others come to when something needs fixing, the one who does not fall apart, who holds things together for everyone else, often at the cost of ever being allowed to fall apart themselves. Perhaps it is the mask of the easy one, agreeable, low maintenance, never a burden, quick to say it's fine, even when it very much is not fine, because somewhere long ago, needing things felt dangerous, or embarrassing, or simply unwelcome. I want you to notice, gently, without any pressure to answer quickly, which mask you have worn the longest. Not tonight's mask, not this week's mask, the oldest one. The one you built perhaps in childhood, perhaps in adolescence, perhaps in your first years of some demanding job or some demanding relationship. The one that has been on so long you may have forgotten it was ever separate from your face at all. Perhaps it is the mask of the impressive one, always achieving, always producing, always moving toward the next marker of worth, because rest, at some point, began to feel indistinguishable from falling behind. Whichever mask is yours, and it may be more than one, worn in different rooms for different audiences, I want you to know this clearly. The mask was not a mistake. It was once a solution. It got you through rooms that might not have been safe for your unguarded face. There is no shame in having built it. Tonight is not about tearing it off in front of an audience. Tonight is simply about remembering, quietly, in the dark, where no audience exists at all, that it is a mask, and that underneath it, something else has been waiting, patiently, this whole time. Let your breath continue, slow, unhurried. There is no rush to this remembering. Masks that took years to build are not meant to be undone in a single night, and that is not what we're attempting. We are only loosening the strap, gently, enough to feel, just for these minutes, what your face feels like with a little more air around it. There is another dimension to the persona worth sitting with tonight, one Jung returned to often in his later writing. The persona is not only shaped by what we chose, but by what our particular family, culture, and era rewarded. A mask built in one household might have been entirely unnecessary in another. A mask built in one decade might look almost unrecognizable in the next. This matters because it means the mask was never a fixed, inevitable part of you. It was a response to a specific environment, and environments change, even when the mask, out of habit, does not notice. I want you to consider, gently, whether the room that required your mask still exists. Sometimes it does. Some environments genuinely still call for the same careful presentation they once did. But often, quietly, without anyone announcing it, the room has changed. The parent who needed you calm has softened, or is no longer there to need it. The the workplace that demanded relentless capability has been left behind for a kinder one. And yet, the mask, built for a room that no longer exists, keeps being worn anyway, out of habit, out of muscle memory, long after its original purpose expired. This is not a failure on your part. Masks do not come with expiration reminders. They simply keep doing their job, faithfully, forever, unless someone, you, now, tonight, gently checks whether the job is still needed. Let us speak too about the particular exhaustion that comes from over-identifying with a persona, a tiredness that rest alone often cannot touch because it is not a tiredness of the body. It is the tiredness of a face held in one expression for years without a break. You may know this tiredness well, the feeling of having slept 8 hours and still waking exhausted, not because the body failed to recover, but because the part of you that was never allowed to simply be seen has been quietly straining, day after day, holding its position. There is another dimension to the persona worth sitting with tonight, one Jung returned to often in his later writing. The persona is not only shaped by what we chose, but by what our particular family, culture, and era rewarded. A mask built in one household might have been entirely unnecessary in another. A mask built in one decade might look almost unrecognizable in the next. This matters because it means the mask was never a fixed, inevitable part of you. It was a response to a specific environment, and environments change, even when the mask, out of habit, does not notice. Let your breath continue, unhurried. In for 4, out for 6. Let your face, right now, in this dark and private room, be entirely off-duty. No one is watching. No one has ever needed you to be composed at this hour, in this bed, in this particular kind of dark. I want to mention, too, that most of us do not wear only one mask, but several, a small wardrobe of personas, each fitted for a different room. The mask worn at work may differ sharply from the one worn with old friends, which may differ again from the one worn with family, which may differ once more from the one worn entirely alone, when even solitude has, for some, become its own kind of performance, rehearsed so long that even privacy no longer feels private. This is not pathology. This is simply the ordinary architecture of a social creature moving through a complex world. Jung himself did not consider having multiple personas a problem. The problem arises only when none of the masks are ever set down, when there is no room left, not even this one, not even now, in the dark, alone, where the unmasked face is finally permitted to exist. So let this be that room. Whatever mask has been on the longest today, perhaps it changed twice, 3 times, moving from room to room, colleague to family member to friend. Let all of them, together, rest now on that same table beside the bed. You do not need to sort them, label them, or decide which one was the most true. They can simply rest together, unused, for these last quiet minutes, while the one face underneath all of them finally gets some air. I want to speak now about a particular cost of over-identifying with the persona, a cost Jung and later thinkers described carefully because it explains something many people feel but struggle to name, a kind of hollowness that can exist even inside a life that looks, from the outside, entirely successful. When the ego becomes fused with the persona, achievement in the persona's terms, the promotion, the approval, the admiration, the being needed, stops actually satisfying anything real, because the thing receiving the applause is not the whole self. It is only the mask. The actual person behind it, the one who has been waiting quietly this entire time to be met, receives none of that applause, because no one, including often the person themselves, has been looking for them. This is why a life can look, by every external measure, entirely full, and still feel from the inside strangely empty. It is not because the achievements were meaningless. It is because they were, in some sense, delivered to the wrong address. I do not want you to hear this as bleak. I want you to hear it as an invitation. Because if the emptiness comes from misdirected mail, then the solution is not more achievement sent to the same wrong address, but simply a redirection. A slow, patient turning of attention back toward the actual person underneath the mask, so that whatever comes next, rest, connection, accomplishment, love, has somewhere real to land. There is one more layer of the persona worth walking through carefully tonight, because it explains a particular kind of loneliness many people carry without ever quite naming it. The loneliness of being loved, consistently, for the mask rather than the face beneath it. This is a strange and quietly painful position to be in. It is not the loneliness of having no one. There may be a great deal of connection, warmth, even genuine affection surrounding a person who lives mostly behind their persona. And yet, underneath all of it, a particular ache can persist. Would they still want me if they saw the parts I've kept hidden? This question, asked or unasked, can sit at the bottom of even the closest relationships, quietly limiting how fully a person allows themselves to be known, even by those who have already shown, again and again, that they can be trusted. I do not want to promise you tonight that every person in your life would meet your unmasked face with the same warmth they've shown your persona. That would not be honest, and honesty matters more here than comfort. Some relationships genuinely were built around the mask, and may struggle or even end if it is set down permanently. This is a real risk, and it deserves to be taken seriously rather than dismissed with easy reassurance. But I want to offer you this instead. You do not need to test this risk with everyone all at once tomorrow morning. Tonight is not an instruction to remove the mask in every room starting immediately. Tonight is simply an invitation to remember, privately, quietly, that a mask exists, and to begin, slowly, choosing one or two safer rooms, one or two more trustworthy faces, where a slightly truer version of you might be welcome to visit, even briefly, even imperfectly. Trust, like everything else we've discussed tonight, does not need to be rebuilt in a single dramatic gesture. It can be rebuilt the way trust is always actually built, in small increments. A slightly truer sentence here, a slightly more honest silence there. Each one a small test that either confirms the room is safer than the mask assumed, or teaches you something useful about where the mask still needs to stay, for now, a little longer. Let your breath settle again, low and slow. There is no urgency to any of this. The relationships in your life will still be there tomorrow, exactly as complex and layered as they are tonight. All that has changed, perhaps, is a small, quiet knowing that somewhere beneath the face you usually show, there is another face, and it too deserves, eventually, in the rooms that can hold it, to be seen. Part 2. The Golden Shadow. Reclaiming what you dimmed. Last night, we spoke about the shadow mostly in terms of what we consider difficult: anger, envy, grief, appetite. Tonight, I want to turn toward a part of the shadow that surprises most people the first time they encounter it, because it does not feel dark at all. It feels, if anything, too bright. Jung and those who followed his work called this the golden shadow, the disowned, exiled parts of ourselves that are not shameful, but luminous. Talent, ambition, desire to be truly seen, the wish for more life than we have been allowing ourselves. This may seem strange at first. Why would anyone hide their gifts? But if you consider it slowly, in this dim, unhurried hour, it becomes less strange and more familiar than you might expect. Perhaps as a child, your excitement was met with irritation rather than delight. A parent, tired or overwhelmed, who could not meet your enthusiasm with their own. Perhaps your particular talent outshone a sibling's, and love or peace in the house seemed to depend on you making yourself smaller. Perhaps ambition, in the room you grew up in, was treated as arrogance, and modesty, even false modesty, was the safer currency. Whatever the specific room was, the lesson many of us absorbed was the same. Shining is dangerous. And so, exactly the way a child learns to hide anger to stay safe, a child can just as easily learn to hide brightness to stay safe. The mechanism is identical, only the material being hidden is different. I want to offer you a very simple, very reliable way to find your own golden shadow, right now, in the quiet of this room. Think of someone you admire. Not casually, not mildly, but intensely. Someone whose success, whose ease, whose talent, whose particular way of moving through the world stirs something in you that is difficult to look at directly. Perhaps it even stirs a little discomfort alongside the admiration, a small, uncomfortable question underneath the praise. Why not me? That discomfort is important information. Admiration that is calm, easy, uncomplicated is simply admiration. But admiration that has an edge to it, that feels almost too intense to sit with, is very often a mirror, angled precisely, showing you a capacity in yourself that has not yet been given permission to live. You do not need to become a copy of the person you admire. That is not the invitation. The invitation is only to ask, gently, what quality am I actually responding to? Is it their courage, their visibility, their ease with being seen, their willingness to take up space without apologizing for it? Whatever that quality is, some version of it, not their version, but a version shaped entirely by your own particular life, is already inside you, waiting, the way a seed waits in dry soil for the season to finally turn toward rain. I want to offer, too, a distinction that often helps people locate their own golden shadow more precisely: the difference between envy and admiration that has already turned into imitation without your noticing. Notice sometimes how a particular kind of person keeps appearing in your life, again and again, in different forms. A friend, a colleague, a public figure you follow closely, each one carrying some version of the same quality. This repetition is rarely coincidence. The psyche has a way of arranging encounters with exactly the quality it is trying to draw your attention toward, presenting it to you from a dozen different angles until you finally notice the pattern and ask what it might be pointing at. If several people you admire share a particular trait, fearlessness in speaking their mind, ease in taking up physical space, comfort with ambition stated plainly rather than apologized for, that repetition is worth trusting. It is not a coincidence of taste. It is closer to a compass, quietly indicating a direction your own golden shadow has been asking to move in. If several people you admire share a particular trait, fearlessness in speaking their mind, ease in taking up physical space, comfort with ambition stated plainly rather than apologized for, that repetition is worth trusting. It is not a coincidence of taste. It is closer to a compass, quietly indicating a direction your own golden shadow has been asking to move in. Let us sit too with a gentler version of the golden shadow, not achievement or visibility, but simply pleasure. Many people, particularly those who learned early to be useful, not capable or undemanding, quietly exile their own capacity for uncomplicated enjoyment, rest without guilt, delight without justification, a full, easy laugh taken up without immediately checking whether it's appropriate, whether it's earned, whether someone else might need the space more. If any part of you flinched, even slightly, at the idea of pleasure without justification, that flinch is worth noticing. It is often one of the clearest signs of a golden shadow that has been dimmed for a very long time. Not because pleasure itself is dangerous, but because somewhere, once, taking up that much space, that easily, felt like it might cost you something. Let us also speak gently about the fear of failure that so often stands between a person and their golden shadow, a fear that operates almost in reverse of what we might expect. It is not only the fear of failing that keeps a gift dimmed. Often, just as powerfully, it is the fear of succeeding at something that matters enough to actually hurt if it were taken away. A hobby kept small, casual, never fully invested in, cannot break your heart if it doesn't work out, because you never fully let yourself want it in the first place. A dream kept vague, unspoken, never quite named aloud, cannot be lost because it was never claimed to begin with. This is its own quiet, protective logic, and it deserves to be understood with compassion rather than criticism. Keeping something small can feel, to the part of you that learned caution early, like the safer bet. But I want to offer a gentle reframe here, one worth carrying with you. A dream kept small to avoid the pain of losing it is not actually protected. It is simply lost more slowly, more quietly, over years instead of in a single dramatic moment. The heartbreak is not avoided, it is only stretched thin, distributed across a lifetime of almost, instead of concentrated into one honest attempt. This is not an instruction to rush toward anything tomorrow. Tonight is not the night for big decisions. Nighttime rarely is, and decisions made in this soft, unguarded state are best held loosely until morning light can test them properly. Tonight is simply an invitation to notice, honestly, without judgment, where a dream has been kept deliberately small, and to ask, quietly, whether that smallness is still serving you, or whether it has become its own kind of cage, built originally for protection, now simply limiting the very thing it once tried to keep safe. There is a particular kind of grief that belongs to this recognition too, and I want to make room for it before we move on. The grief of time already spent keeping something small. This grief does not need to be resolved tonight, or even fully felt tonight. It may simply need to be acknowledged, briefly, honestly, the way you might nod at a stranger passing on a dark street, seeing them clearly for just a moment before continuing on your own way. Whatever this grief holds for you, let it be held gently tonight, without urgency, without demand. Time spent small is not time wasted, not entirely. It was time spent surviving, staying safe, doing the best you could with what you knew. That too deserves some tenderness, rather than only regret. I want to offer one more piece before we move toward the Stoic and Buddhist teachings that will close tonight's journey. A small, practical thread you can hold on to after tonight, in ordinary daylight, when this voice is no longer speaking to you. The next time you notice that sharp, uncomfortable edge of admiration for someone else's gift, pause, if you can, and ask gently, what is this actually showing me about myself? Not as a demand for an immediate answer, but as an open door, left ajar, the way we spoke of doors last night. Patient, unhurried, willing to be walked through whenever you are ready, and not a moment before. Let us borrow once more from older traditions Because both the Stoics and the Buddhist teachers understood something crucial about the mask we have been discussing tonight. Something that will help us set it down fully before sleep takes you. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who had been born into slavery and understood more than most the difference between what is truly ours and what is merely assigned to us, taught his students to imagine life as a play, and each person as an actor given a role by the playwright. Your task, he said, is not to choose the role. That is not within your control. Your task is only to play the role well, whatever it is, for as long as it is given to you. The Buddhist tradition offers a companion teaching here, one about anatta, sometimes translated as non-self. The idea that the fixed, solid identity we cling to so tightly is, on close inspection, more fluid than we assume. Not that you do not exist, but that the rigid story of who you are, the mask worn so long it calcified into identity, is not, in fact, as solid or as permanent as it feels. This can sound frightening at first, but I want you to feel, instead, how much relief is available in it. If the mask were truly, permanently, unchangeably you, there would be no way out of it, no possibility of ever setting it down. But if it is not permanent, if it is simply a pattern built over years out of understandable protective reasons, then it can also slowly, gently be loosened. Tonight is one small loosening. Tomorrow, if you choose, can be another. We have walked a shorter road tonight than the one before it, but no less deep. Through the mask and the reasons it was built. Through the golden shadow and the brightness it has been quietly guarding. Through the actor and the role, the self and the story worn over the self. Before we let stillness take its final hold tonight, I want to offer one more image, gathering together what we've walked through in this shorter, deeper journey. Picture the mask, resting now on the table beside your bed, exactly where you set it down earlier. In the dim light of this room, look at it closely, without fear. Notice its shape, familiar, worn smooth in places from years of use, carrying the particular contours of whichever role it was built to play. It is not ugly. It is not something to resent. It was, in its own way, a kind of devoted servant, doing exactly what it was built to do, for exactly as long as it was needed. Tomorrow, when morning comes, you may reach for the mask again, and that will be all right. Some rooms will still call for it, at least for now. But you will reach for it differently, perhaps, a little more knowingly, a little less fused to it, remembering, somewhere quiet within you, that it is a tool you are choosing to pick up, not a face you are stuck permanently wearing. You have done good work tonight, quiet work, the kind that does not announce itself, the kind no audience will ever see, and does not need one to be real. You met a mask you have worn a long time, and you set it down, gently, without force. You touched a brightness you had dimmed,